Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, Pigskin Addicts. Back again with another video. And as you guys see, the title of this video, as you guys come in here, I think this video is well past due, to be honest. We knew that Mike Williams, we knew that Keenan Allen, we knew that they possibly could move on, right? We knew this coming out of the 2023 season. We knew the contract stuff. We knew all about all of this, right? And obviously the move was made with Mike Williams. I talked about that yesterday in the video that I did. But to further cover this team, right, to get into the minutia of it a little bit, right, we need to understand how Quentin Johnston is going to have a bounce back season in year two. And normally I wouldn't say what I'm about to say, but these are very, very different circumstances. I think this is a make or break year for Quentin Johnston. Not for his NFL career, but just his time with the Chargers. Let's start from the beginning and let's understand that Quentin Johnston was not a draft pick of Jim Harbaugh and Joe Ortiz, right? They did not have the positions that they currently have, right, at the time of the draft last year. So they are not really attached to him in any way, right? The only way that they're attached to him is that they work for the same organization now. They didn't bring him in, right? They weren't the ones, who had him high on the boards. They weren't the ones who drafted him. They weren't the ones who scouted him. So he really has no ties to them, right? He's not a part of their draft history. So in a worst case situation, worst case scenario, if the Chargers end up moving on from Quentin Johnston after this season, it's not really gonna reverberate through NFL circles. It's not gonna look bad on Jim Harbaugh. It's not gonna look bad on Joe Ortiz because this was a guy that they did not draft. So knowing that, right, moving forward, this is why I believe Quentin Johnston has to come out and he has to perform at a very, very high level this season, right? When you look at the stats, you guys see him on the screen: 38 receptions, 431 yards, and 2 touchdowns. On paper, it doesn't seem like that is a terrible year, right? And I won't classify it as a terrible year. We've seen way worse players than Quentin Johnston in the NFL. So I'm not going to put him up there as saying that he is, terrible and the guy can't play. No, I'm not going to say that. But I will say he did leave a lot left on the table last year, right? There's a lot to really unpack when it comes to him. You look at his route running, right? You look at his hands. You look at, his effort when it comes to blocking and things like that. Those things are not where they should be, right? Especially for a guy being drafted in the first round. There was a lot of excuse making for Quentin Johnston. Early on in the season, there was a lot of fans making excuses for him. And when it just boiled down to it, on the field, he did not do what he needed to do, right? And we can make excuses all day long, whether you're pro Quentin Johnston, whether you're against him, whatever. There's a whole bunch of things that can be said, but at the end of the day, you have to perform on Sundays, right? We don't want to hear about training camp. We don't want to hear about OTAs. We don't want to hear about any of that other, ancillary stuff. Superstars in the NFL get paid, right? They get made on Sundays. You can be the best practice player of all time. It doesn't matter if you do not translate that to Sundays. That's what you have to do, and I think that's what Quentin Johnston's biggest hurdle is, right? We've heard so much. We've heard glowing reviews about him in training camp. We've heard glowing reviews about him in practice, right? Apparently him and Herbert have really good chemistry at practice. That is nowhere to be found when it's time to suit up for the game on Sunday. It's nowhere to be found. They are not on the same page. So when you look at a player like Quentin Johnston, right, you have to basically just boil down to what he does on Sundays. We know he's a pretty good athlete, right? We know he's fast, right? He can run, pretty damn fast in a straight line. He can do all of the things that a great wide receiver needs to do on paper, right? He can do all those things in practice. He can do all of that stuff. His production on Sundays is going to be ultimately what I believe is going to lead to him either, continuing his tenure with the Chargers or him, potentially moving on because, again, the new administration has no ties to him. So I think people have to be very, very cognizant of that. We need to see what Quentin Johnston is going to do. And I personally, I believe the release of Mike Williams puts a lot of pressure on Quentin Johnston. He has to step up, right? Because as you see on the screen, 38 receptions. Again, it's not a terrible year, but Mike Williams had 19 receptions in just 3 games. These are, season totals. This is a 17-game total for Quentin Johnston. Mike Williams had 50% of that in just 3 games, right? And obviously, Mike has been around for a while. He's got chemistry with Herbert and things like that. But it just lets you know from a production standpoint, Quentin Johnston needs to step it up. There really is no excuse. There's not going to be any excuses next year. He's going to have to come in and he's going to have to start cooking with grease from day one, right? He's going to have to impress Harbaugh. He's going to have to impress Ortiz. He's going to have to impress these guys because you guys got to remember as well, too, right? When you look at Harbaugh, you look at his background coming from Michigan, right? We know what he did with the 49ers. Every team he goes to is a physical team, right? You look at Ortiz. When they draft players in Baltimore, right, they want physical players. Everybody out there has to be physical. Doesn't matter what position you play. They draft big guys. They play a physical brand of football. They have their own brand of football that they play, and they draft very well, to complement that. So Quentin Johnston is not, I believe if we could have done this all over again, right, we could have had the draft all over again, except with Harbaugh and Ortiz at the helm. Quentin Johnston would not be the pick. I firmly believe that because he is not the kind of player that either of these guys are really attracted to, right? He's just not that. He's a finesse player, and that's not typically what Harbaugh or, Ortiz normally looks for in a player coming out of college. So with that being said, I believe he really has to impress. He's got to impress all training camp, right? He has to go out. He has to perform. He has to put numbers up because, remember, there is no Mike Williams coming back, right? Mike Williams is not looming on the sidelines. He's not getting healthy. He's not coming back, right? He's gone. He's going to be playing for another team. He's going to be wearing another helmet in 2024. So outside of Keenan Allen and outside of Josh Palmer, Quentin Johnston has to step up. He has to step up. He has to be physical, a lot more physical, right? He has to play his entire game in a more physical manner, right? He's got to be more physical at the top of his routes. He's got to catch the ball more physically, right? He's got to do everything, from an opposite standpoint of what he's used to. And that's tough, right? That's tough. You are who you are coming into the league, and just to completely change your DNA and to become somebody else is tough, right? And, I'm not exactly sure if that's what Harbaugh is going to ask of him, but the way that he plays now is not conducive of a wide receiver playing for Jim Harbaugh. We just know it. We can go back and look at history. All the receivers are always tough. They're running, across the middle. They're taking big hits. They're getting up. They're talking shit. They're doing all of the stuff that Jim Harbaugh likes as a traditional old school football guy. Quentin Johnston is kind of, a modern wide receiver, a modern, fantasy football wide receiver, right? He's a guy, he can get down the field pretty fast. He can, do a lot of things athletically, but, as far as him fitting into the DNA of this team, his game really does not reflect that. So this is going to be a very interesting year for Quentin Johnston. Again, I believe it is make or break for him. You cannot come into the 2024 season the same way you came into the 2023 season. He has to elevate his game. And obviously, I think number one is hands, right? He's got to be somebody that Justin Herbert trusts. Justin Herbert looked him off several times, right? There was a bunch of Charger fans, especially early in the season, on Twitter posting screenshots from the All-22 and, posting, circling where Quentin Johnston is open and, he beat this guy off the line. He's open. Herbert's not getting him the ball. He did this. Herbert's not getting him the ball. Guess what, guys? It's not Herbert's fault that he didn't get him the ball. We did not see everything that happened, right? We didn't see everything that happened in practice. We didn't see all the drop passes. We didn't see all of the wrong routes being run, right? We did not see that level of play that Justin Herbert seen. Justin Herbert knew exactly what he was doing, and he knew exactly what he was doing when he was looking this guy off because, he obviously was not trustworthy last year. So I think he has to start from square one. He's got to gain the trust of Justin Herbert. If Herbert does not trust you, right? If he does not trust you, you are not going to get the ball, and you're probably not going to get on the field. I think the way that 2023 ended for Quentin Johnston, I think it was just it wasn't great, right? There's a lot of people around the league raising eyebrows now, especially considering that Zay Flowers went one pick behind him. There's a bunch of people around the league raising flowers, wondering if this guy is even NFL material, right? Let alone, being a first round pick. We seen Zay Flowers light it up all season long, including the playoffs. So we're really, really, really looking for Quentin Johnston to come out and have a strong start to the season, right? And I just think he needs to build, right, one game after another, right? Have a solid first game, have a solid second game, right? Just continue to build his confidence. It's not that he needs to come out and, catch, 10 balls for 150 yards or whatever. It's not that, but he has to develop into, the player that they hoped he would be, right? He's got to start stepping into that potential. Normally, the wide receiver position is a position where guys come in and are able to contribute right away. So him not being able to contribute to that level right away, it is a bit of a red flag. But the Chargers were in disarray last year, so he does have that to his advantage. If you're arguing for him, right, the team just wasn't great coaching, whatever. So he has that to his advantage. But coming into the 2024 season, that's gone, right? You have one of the best football coaches out there now who is coaching the Chargers, right? You have a fresh mind at GM, a guy who has a lot of experience, a guy who knows how to build teams from the inside out. None of the excuses from 2023 are there anymore. So Quentin Johnston is a guy, he's got to come out, he's got to play well. And I think if he does, right, if he's able to develop some confidence, then I think Harbaugh and Herbert, and the rest of the brain trust, they're going to start to develop some trust in him as well, too. But I think, he really, really has to play well. If not, then I see the Chargers moving on from him. The Chargers are going to have a little bit of cap wiggle room, going into the 2025 season. So, I know there's going to be wide receivers out there. There's always great receivers in the draft. Trades are now they're more of a modern thing now than they were, 10, 15 years ago. So there's a lot of ways to restock the wide receiver room if Quentin Johnston is not that guy. But we spent a first-round pick on him, guys. I hope that he can, come around. I hope he can come around. Hopefully he's just a late bloomer. Hopefully he starts to pick up things. Hopefully his mental, right, his mental approach to the game improves, and he's able, to use his mind, right, as well as his athleticism to make plays and, just raise his game and get that trust of the quarterback, get that trust of the head coach, and continue to get better from there. I hope that's what happens. But he has a lot to prove, and I honestly can't wait till the season starts. I want to see what Quentin Johnston's made of. I'm somebody, I called him out very, very early. I didn't see it with him, but I'm giving him a chance. I'm giving him an opportunity to come out and prove me wrong. Just like Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack proved me wrong last year, and I'm happy to say that he proved me wrong. I thought Khalil Mack was washed, and I thought we should have got rid of him. He came out, and he had a monster year. Proved me wrong, made me eat crow all year long. That's what I want Quentin Johnston to do. So I'm rooting for him, definitely rooting for him. I want him to succeed, and I want him to be a big part of what the Chargers have going forward. But he has to prove that. He's got to prove it on Sundays, and I'm looking forward to him doing that this coming season. But that is all I got for this video, guys. I just wanted to follow up the Mike Williams release video because a lot of pressure is going to be on this guy here. A lot of pressure. He's a young kid, but he has his head on his shoulders, right? He's not too emotional. He seems like a very, very upstanding young man. So if anybody can do it, I think he can. I think he has the right mental makeup as well, too. I think he just has to, prove it to everybody, right, on Sundays. I think that's what he has to do. And once he does, I'll come on here and I'll praise him and I'll give him credit for that. So until next time, guys, that's all I got for this one. Again, if there's any topics that you guys want me to cover, please drop them in the comments and let me know, and I'll try to get to them as quickly as I can. But that's all I got for this one, guys. Until next time.